So I said, sir, I'm going to do a DUI investigation on you. We did a DUI investigation, and he nailed it. I took him to CPT, and he blew like a 3-something.
Holy cow.
I said, we need to go to the hospital. Who are we going to see? We don't know the same people. We're not going to see anybody. I have to get you medically cleared to go to the jail.
You're listening to 56, a Pinellas County Sheriff's Office podcast. I'm Ricky Butler, once again joined by my curious but well-informed civilians, Laura Sullivan and Ashley Cooley, and we are excited to have you with us for another episode. Thanks to everybody that tuned in for the last episode with Jacqueline Danzig of our intelligence-led policing section. Thanks to all of our listeners for their support. If you're tuning in for the first time, press pause and head over, listen to episode 0 for some important context and information about what we're doing with this podcast and what we hope to do with it. So we're going to get right into it. Sheriffs in Florida have 3 primary areas of responsibility. Of course, the traditional law enforcement side, which is a responsibility we share with our municipal partners. They're responsible for operating the county jail, and we talked to Deputy LaCourte a couple episodes ago about that, and judicial operations. And today we are excited to continue our trend setting with the highest ranking guest we've had so far, Major Adrian Arnold with Judicial Operations. Welcome.
Thank you. Let me start by saying I've done a lot of things in my career, but I've never been a part of a podcast. So I guess I can check it off my bucket list of things to do.
Absolutely. And we're glad you could do it and join us here on 56. So
I like how confident you are, assuming that you're going to get through this intact.
That's a good point. I'm going to try my best.
Okay.
So before we get into it, because I want to learn all about Major Arnold, his background, and of course talk some about judicial operations, what they do. But first, Ashley has a question. We kind of have a icebreaker question to level the playing field. Laura and I are hearing the question for the first time, so we're going to answer it with you, but it's going to have nothing to do with anything we're going to talk about today, except now. So
it's
Ashley,
random.
And it's truly the most terrifying part of this.
Yeah, Laura.
You're going to be happy today. You are.
Okay.
You're going to be happy.
Oh boy.
Is it about what makes
you
a sandwich
and me
or
are
a
not
taco?
happy. And I don't know if you're going to like this question or
Okay,
not.
well, that's
So-
way to set it up.
Okay.
I
Ashley.
was happy.
Yeah, now
I was confident.
Now he's getting
Now
nervous.
I'm nervous.
Yeah.
All right, lay it on us.
All right. So you have to choose one. You have to choose one. You can't say, no, it's a pet. You have to have either a pet snake, a big pet snake, or a big pet spider. It has
hard to
it has
pick
to
because
be
I
alive.
love
You're
them
taking
both.
care of it. Which one? What would you choose? I know this is going to be tough for you. It's tough for me, but
So yeah,
It's-
but maybe it's going to be tough for you in a
it's hard
different way.
because I
Yeah,
want
because
all
she's
of them.
weird and she likes those things.
It could be any kind of snake.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes. It's just, you have to choose one. Like, and for most people, it stirs fear. I see joy in your eyes.
So much joy.
So let's
we
just-
need to move on
wait a
to the
minute,
people
wait a
that
minute.
are.
If you guys,
This is an easy one for me, okay?
There you
It's
go.
the snake.
Okay,
It's
why?
the snake because it's not a spider.
Correct. That's how I
although
am
if
too.
you guys don't like either one, snakes can live a pretty long time. Spiders might, depending on the species, might just be like
I have to keep it alive, right?
Correct.
Okay.
You have to keep it alive. You have to
can't-
feed
for
it.
its
You have to
natural
care for
life
it.
cycle. So if you want to just get it over with, go with the spider.
No.
Also, they can be very
I'm
small.
right there with you.
No,
I will
snake.
take, like, I'm saying like a tarantula.
Snakes,
Oh, it has to be a big spider. I missed
Yeah,
that
it's
part.
not like this
snakes
big.
also
No.
move kind of methodically. Spiders are just so unpredictable.
I love them both, but I'm going to go for a snake because they have a much higher cuddle factor.
Okay. What about you?
I am scared to death of snakes,
Okay.
period. And I'm not particularly fond of spiders, but if I had a choice, spiders all day long.
Oh, see, I'm pretty freaked out by spiders.
I jumped out of a moving car over a spider one time.
Did you?
Were you the driver?
No,
Okay,
fortunately.
at least.
Fortunately.
So I tell you a funny story about a spider, and about a snake, and it goes back. I was out mowing the lawn, and I saw what I thought was like a 5-foot long snake, but it really wasn't. So I went to my garage and took the weed killer and started chasing after the snake. Of course, I didn't catch him, but I had this trail of dead grass kind of following behind the snake. So
In a snake shape, in
yes, it
homage to
was.
the snake.
It was.
Yeah, yeah.
And my wife is looking at like, what are you doing? And then my neighbor came out like, what are you doing? nothing, and I'll be done real soon.
Yeah.
So I have a fear for snakes.
The snake was watching you somewhere, just really enjoying that.
Yes.
I'm
And
so
is
glad I could
everybody else.
legitimately laugh at that. It didn't end with a dead snake.
No, it
I
didn't.
would
I
have
was
to get up and
concerned.
walk
I was
away.
like, oh no, oh no, you about to unleash Laura.
Laura
Yeah.
is, we almost had a problem. I used to say the best kind of snake is a dead snake, but I don't even say that anymore because of this one.
Well, I couldn't catch a snake. So fortunate for me, I couldn't catch it because he was, going around, but I tried my best. So a week later, here's the results. You see this brown grass all over. So I learned my lesson.
I love it.
Now the snake knows how to get back to where it was.
Yeah,
Right.
direct path
Right.
back to.
Follow the path I made for
I'm
you.
gonna need to recover from that one. That was terrible. But a spider. It's the other thing too for me is the spider gets out. That's panic. I can't. But if the snake gets out, at least for the most part, I know where it can and can't be.
Yeah.
Like it's not gonna bomb me from the ceiling, probably.
A snake isn't?
Oh my
I've had so
goodness.
many snakes drop down on me.
I just saw a
It
video
could, but it would be less likely.
of a snake coming down from
Oh,
a
it hit
guy's
the fan?
fan. Yeah, did you see
It
that?
got flung off
yeah,
at
and
him?
and it went straight
Oh my
towards him.
god!
I was like, that's
would have
nightmare
there would have
fuel.
been there would have been a Ricky-shaped hole in the wall, like a card. He was like right through the wall.
For me, I'm afraid of both of them, but I'm more afraid of big spider.
All righty. Well, enough with Ashley's
Yeah,
terrifying
yeah.
question. You're right. I did not like that one. So
Thank you, Ashley. One for
Yeah,
me,
see?
finally.
Well, finally one for Laura.
That was an icebreaker, by the way. That makes me all nervous.
Now
and
it
kinda
made it worse.
concerned.
Yeah, he was already
a
like, what a-
snake on one side.
She didn't.
spider on the
I
other.
did.
I
Whichever
created
of the two
additional
won
tension, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
is in a tank underneath our table right now.
Yeah.
You're gonna see me start scratching
Yeah.
or something. So
Why is he twitching?
yeah, right. Or looking behind me. So
This is Major. He's got a lot going on, so that
Right.
could cause a twitch,
Right.
I've heard. So November will be 30 years
Yes.
here at the Sheriff's Office. So
Yes.
talk to us about your background, how you ended up here.
Well, like I said, 30 years, and it doesn't seem like it. It was funny because a friend of mine, he had a neighbor who worked for the sheriff's office, and this is back in '93. I never wanted to be a deputy at all. First reason, long sleeve shirts year round, and it's hot in the summertime. Second reason, just I didn't know anything about being a deputy because I'm from up north, and they had a different function for deputies as they have down in Florida.
So as far as sheriffs in general, then.
Sheriffs in
so
general,
where are you
yes.
from? Where'd you grow up?
I'm from Lansing, Michigan.
Okay, Michigan. Okay.
So the way it works is a state trooper did a lot of the policing.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had the cities, and the deputies actually just the courts and the jail.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them had patrol functions, but not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So just didn't appeal to me.
And that is something that we run into quite a bit with people that come down here to visit as well. Because I was actually just telling a group recently, you have places like New York, especially places up north, where sheriffs really are not that powerful.
Right.
But then places like Florida, Texas, and California, sheriffs have a different elevator role.
And
So that makes sense.
you're 100% right about that. When I was in HR, that was one of the things I used to express to the applicants, especially up north, because they think the state patrol and the highway patrol rather than state troopers, they're different. This is strictly highway. So when you come here, first of all, you should never get bored. And I'll go back to answer, you should never get bored because there's so much to do here. I mean, like the courts, patrol, IOB, you name it, there's a lot of things to do. But I just wasn't fond of being a deputy. So back in '93, it was a self-sponsored academy. Went to the academy, and my heart was set on Tampa PD because, to show cops, and you see them there, and you just think that's what law enforcement is about. So went through the process with Tampa. And at that point, they had a situation where the pension for over 30 and under 30, it was something they had to figure out. So they put a freeze on all the hiring. So I figured I'll go to Pinellas County and just be a reserve deputy until I get this Tampa thing back in order. Went to the counter and, hey, I want to be a reserve deputy. The guy at the counter looked at me like, okay. Went through the whole process. He's like, do you want to work? I said, yeah, I'll work.
So you were already certified?
I was already certified.
Okay.
Yes, graduated from the academy.
Okay.
So again, back then you had to sponsor yourself. There wasn't a lot of self-sponsor. So I went through the process pretty quick. And I need to back up because back then we had to do the Cooper assessment. And a mile and a half was part of the run. So I said, how fast do I do a mile and a half? He said, how bad do you want the job? I said, oh, that fast. So I went through the whole process pretty quick. Well, ironic is Tampa went through and they fixed their pension. So this was before cell phones, before whatever it is, landline. And I took my daughter, because I got the call from Tampa, hey, they fixed everything, come pick up your equipment. So pack her in a car, getting ready to go to Tampa. Left my wallet in the house. So let me go back and get the wallet. As I'm back there, my phone rang. Like, I don't have time for this. I picked it up. It was Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. Hey, the sheriff signed up on your file. We want you to start working with us. Like, wow. Yeah, I think I'm going to stay with Tampa. They just signed up on my file. Go to Tampa, get my equipment. Later in the day, I get another call from Pinellas County. You don't understand. The sheriff signed up on your file. There's a lot of people trying to get hired here. I said, no, I'm okay. I'm good. Do me a favor, the recruiter said. Come and ride with us. I said, okay, I'll ride with you, but I'm still going to Tampa. Put me in the car, and I'm like, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought it was. So I'm talking to the deputy doing a ride-along. We pull into the old Barnett Bank, and I'm like, well, what are you doing? And there was this little call box on the wall. So back then, we had the ARM system, but you have live dictations on your reports.
Automated records management
system. And I'm like, you're doing a report? Yeah. I'm like, where's your notepad and where's the forms? I'm just calling it live dictation. I went, that's the report writing system? Hey, I'm coming to Pinellas County. I'm done with Tampa.
No, just on that alone.
On that alone, because you're younger. I wasn't big in report writing. So, and you're talking, and it's live dictation. As I'm talking, they're typing. And that's my report. When I'm done, the report is over. That was a no-brainer.
Yeah. So, and I want to go back a little bit further because I want to know how you got here and why you landed on, law enforcement. But while we're talking about that, those call boxes, pre-cell phones. So there were several locations where you could go. And back then you may have seen a deputy, you'd see a cruiser pulled up to a telephone pole or something with this call box open and they're just on the phone. Mm-hmm. And we actually still have a couple of those call boxes, by the way. It's pretty cool.
There was a lot of banks had them in the drive-through window, like on the last one. And I remember the phone number 6190 was a phone, was a combination. You just did the combination, and those cords must have been 15 feet long. And we hung the phone up. You had to take all the cords and wrap them up and put them inside the call box. Uh-huh. But I thought, I've never seen that. I never heard that.
It's innovative.
This is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And how can somebody not
want to do
this?
So let's just back up really quick. So you grew up in Michigan.
Yes.
So did you always want to be in law enforcement? What brought you to Florida? Give us a little bit of that.
I never wanted to be in law enforcement. But that was the last thing I thought I wanted to do. A good friend of mine, his grandfather was law enforcement. His father, law enforcement. So he was born to be in law enforcement. He talked me into it. I said, I have no interest in doing that. You're wasting your time. I'm not doing it. Same thing. Hey, do a ride along with me. So I did a ride along. This is pretty good, but I can't do this in cold weather. I cannot see myself doing it. So I'm an old guy. And when I was in high school, Clearwater Beach was a spring break spot to go to. So I'm just thinking to myself, one December, what am I doing here? I need to go to Florida. I'm tired of shoveling snow. This was before they had those pre-start cars. You were the starter for the cars. You had to go out there and warm the cars up. It wasn't that self-start thing. Mm-hmm. You had to shovel the snow. It's just everything. Why am I here? Why don't I go to Florida? Plus, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'll say it anyways. Everybody's seen Miami Vice, and they thought that Florida law enforcement was like the Miami Vice type of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go out there, drive these cool cars, wear these cool clothes, and enjoy the weather. But the weather was the main thing that brought me down to Florida. And the law enforcement, it's just one of those things where, I didn't think I wanted to do it until you do a ride along, and then you say, well, this isn't as bad as I thought. It's different. Because that's true. No 2 days are the same. So it's just one of those things where I can see myself doing this. Mm-hmm. And, I laugh now and I think about it. I got my first check. It was probably like $700 after taxes. And I thought, boy, I get all this money to do this job, to have this much fun. I am the luckiest guy in the world. Right.
And you're not in Michigan.
Right. I'm not in Michigan. Even
Shoveling
better.
snow.
Right. Shoveling snow.
So you make your way down here. You take the job, and you've been here. I mean, like you said, 30 years in November. You've been just about everywhere except IOB.
Except IOB.
So let's talk about your path, all the things you've gotten to do. So you start off in 1993. You're an FTO.
So I started. I'm an FTO, and back then there was only 2 of us in the FTO program. So I was very
FTO,
lucky.
that's field
training officer.
Come on, Ashley, jump in
Well,
anytime.
yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Try not to be rude.
I know. I'm very rude. I'll interrupt wherever.
And there was 2 of us in the field training. So I was fortunate enough to go with, typically it's 4 trainers. And the first and the last are usually the same. So they can track your progress when you first started, as opposed to being in phase 4, just to see where you are. And the distribution of work is 25% first phase, 50%, 75%. And then in phase 4, you're doing it all with the same FTO as phase 1.
So, and again, just for clarification for our listeners, so I think it's 5 phases now. I know it's changed over the years.
Ricky, I've been out of there for 30 years.
I know.
So.
And I should have heard it enough by now, but there's I think it's 5 phases, and essentially the first phase, for example, as he's saying, with the workload, you're basically riding along, doing a little bit of the work, and it slowly transitions to the point where by the end, the field training officer or FTO is essentially riding along with you.
Yes.
So
it's another thing too. I've been here so long. When I first started, I got the holster for a 38. But I was able to transition to the 9mm. And I thought, boy, that was the best thing in the world. Here I am carrying a 9mm, and I'm in this training class with all of these veteran deputies.
and you got the 9.
And I got the 9. And I'm ahead of deputies who've been here for a while. Like, man, look at this.
How advanced I am,
How
right?
fancy are we?
So what were some of your first relationships and things like with your group? I mean, in FTO, I mean, how was everybody? Did you have some experienced FTOs? What was the
FTO? It wasn't like you think it is. I didn't have any problems at FTO phase 1. I thought I was doing well. Phase 2, I had an FTO who a little different, and I'll remember this as vivid as can be. He told me to stop a car in front of me. And I stopped the car, and the protocol is you ask for license, registration, proof of insurance, and then you tell the person why you stopped them. So the lady in the car, why'd you stop me? I said, let me get back to you, because I had no idea. So I was smart enough to let me get back to you. So I went back to the car, and I was in the driver's seat, and I'm driving.
Sure.
I said to the FTO, why do we stop her? He said, you need to get the statute book and look and figure it out. And I'm like, I can look from now until whenever, but I don't know why I stopped. Figure it out.
What?
Yeah. Well,
It's not no little book.
it's not a little book. And I'm a brand new deputy. Well, there's a part that says the light around the license tag has to be clear. And this was pink. I could still look in this book and probably have a hard time finding it. So all FTOs weren't the same. And at that point, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to get through this no matter what, because I was very confident that I can fly through and I thought everybody liked me because I'm a likable person. For some reason, man, the FTO, we didn't see eye to eye. And I did get, not a reputation, but hey, this guy is difficult to work with. And that bothered me because I asked the question, why am I stopping this car? I didn't know. Now you tell me once, I'll figure it out, but I didn't know.
Do you think, to you, I mean, you're obviously a new kid on the block coming in. Was there kind of a culture with some of the old timers where it was kind of different and there was kind of this resistance to new people, new things?
It was different as far as, I'll say different because they wanted to make sure you did the right thing and they really wanted to teach you. So I remember getting the car, don't touch nothing, don't say nothing, don't talk on the radio, you just sit there. And it's just a different way of teaching you how to do things. I don't know if it was intentional, but this is just how they did it back then. And nobody tried to wash me out, I don't think, except for one person. but they just had a different way of doing things. And they wanted to make sure that you were prepared for any situation that could come up. So the FTO experience I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, but you just seen how they did things back then. Don't talk on the radio until I tell you to. Don't touch the MDT until we tell you to. Don't do anything unless we tell you to. But they would also do things to get you to think. And I remember going back in neighborhoods, turn left, turn right, turn left, turn right. Where you at? I don't know. Then look at the street signs. Why not? You're being attacked. Somebody's calling for help. Where you at? I'm lost. So some things like they just teach you how to do things. I remember we used to wear we had those campaign hats. You had to put those hats on just to learn how to shield the light, look down range to see what was going on. Just things like that. They just did stuff.
So there was a method to the madness.
There was a method to the madness. Right. And I remember doing a traffic stop. It was a simulated traffic stop. And I put my foot out on the pavement between the door. And the sergeant came and just closed the door on my leg. I'm a bad guy coming to get you. What are you going to do? But those are life lessons.
Right.
You don't make those mistakes. I'm coming to get you. The door's pent against my leg. Get out. I can't. Get out. So those are the things that, you didn't understand it back then, but you understand it now and the reason they're doing it. So it just makes you a more rounded deputy, and you see the method now. May not understood it then, but I understand it now.
Makes sense now.
It makes sense now.
Different appreciation for it.
Those a lot of those that makes sense. You're going to be in those situations. How often are you going to pull somebody over and not know why you did it?
Well, if I'm the one driving the car, I'm not going to pull you over.
No, exactly. That's right. I'm like, that was a little off.
It was different. It was different. It's and I understand it. Everybody has a different method, a way of doing things, but I didn't agree with that. But so when I got promoted, this individual told me, "Congratulations." I said, "You better hope you never come work in my squad, because I forgive you, but I didn't forget what you did." So there's a silver lining to that. This person's now retired, so there's a silver lining to it.
They're safe now.
You didn't get to do it?
Never came to work for me. Never came to work for me.
Maybe by design.
Yeah, right.
So there's ways of getting back.
Yeah. So you mentioned the MDT. So
I remember those.
So what does that
is.
stand for? First of all,
That is the mobile data terminal.
all right. So pre-computers.
Pre-computers.
Oh. It looked computer-ish.
It looked computer-ish, but it was computer.
In the same way that a Etch-a-Sketch does.
Yeah, kind of.
It does now, but back in the 90s and late 80s and early 90s, that was
cutting edge.
state of the art. That was
Ah.
cutting edge, right? And Pinellas County, unbeknownst to me at that time, we're known for technology, training, and just having everything we need as far as equipment-wise. And that was cutting, before anybody had them, we had those MDTs in our cars. Now, now you look at it, like I said, it's clip art now, and it is like an Etch-a-Sketch. But back then, like, here we are now. If you ran a name like a Jones or a Smith, it only holds so many characters, not like the computer now. And I'm not sure what the character, I can run a Smith on a Friday and come back and still getting hits on a Monday.
Yeah. You couldn't exit out of it.
You couldn't exit out of it.
You were
So
stuck.
what sort of things could you search on an MDT?
You could search everything, but it was just big. You had to do a big formula. It wasn't just like a pre. You had
So you could search addresses,
You could
whatever.
search everything, but you had to do all these big formulas to search that. So that would take you 20 minutes just to get the formula up. But you could. We had these little cheat sheets, so we can just go through. And you got pretty good typing with one hand because it's set there, and it wasn't like a full keyboard. So you were pretty good at typing in one hand.
And talking on the radio.
And talking on the radio, and then looking at everything going around you. Yes.
So so getting out of FTO, there are, of course, a lot of firsts, right, when you're a new deputy. So any good stories or fun things there? Well, I'm sure there are, but
there are.
That you can share. Yeah.
So this is when I didn't have a take-home car at that time because we just started and I didn't have a take-home car. So I had to get a spare car.
And what kind of cars were we driving back then?
Well, back then we were driving, it was Crown Vics and Tauruses, but they just didn't look the same as they are now.
Sure.
And I locked my key in the car. So I called the corporal on the radio to meet me so he can get on this MDT to let dispatch know I needed somebody to come in and lock the door. So he got there, And he got on the radio to lock my keys in my car. Well, I could have done that. I'm trying to keep this little key.
Yeah.
So it wasn't good fun. You know, I was a junior. I was a rookie with the senior squad, and they took time to make sure I did everything the right way. But they would, I would be the butt of a lot of jokes.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get picked on.
I would get picked on, but it's a learning thing. But the main thing is, like I learned, if I like my keys in my car, I'd rather walk to the payphone and call myself,
Right.
as opposed to having somebody come
Do it for you.
get on the radio doing it for me.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
You'll never live it down.
I will never live it down. I will never live it down.
That's awesome. So what else from those early days?
So from those early days, I was patrol. Then I went to community policing.
Okay.
And then community policing, I was one of the first community policing deputies in the Ridgecrest, Baskin's Ridgecrest area. And it was different because I was in their Omega Street Crimes unit before that. And when we disbanded, we had to disband because it took over the city of Dunedin. So everybody had to go to different areas just so we can make this work out. And I went from a street crimes unit to community policing. And one of the first things we did in community policing is we have to help the citizens put streetlights in the neighborhood. Like, I didn't sign up to do that. I'm a cop. I'm not putting lights in the community. But after a while, I was talked into doing it. I said, it makes a lot of sense to do it. So I got to go back and tell you, when I left street crimes unit, my partner, we didn't know each other, but we knew each other. We didn't know each other well.
So just real quick, street crimes back then.
Street crimes back then.
People say street crimes now, and it's like, well, isn't that where all crimes happen? Like, what does that mean? What did that mean back then?
Well, we just went to the targeted areas, like were high probability of crime, and we would just go there.
In plain clothes?
And no, we were plain clothes, uniform. It just depends on what
you doing?
rode a bike. I mean, it just depends on what the situation was. We kind of did everything. But we mostly were in cars, and we had those cars, we called them slick tops, no light bars on the top. So it was like a low profile vehicle, and we didn't wear the traditional Class A. We wore it was like the Marine uniform. It was like our
More
utility.
tactical.
Yeah, more tactical. Yes, it was. So we just did whatever it is. We just go to Squad 1 unincorporated St. Pete. We would go to Ridgecrest. I mean, it just went everywhere that there was like a predictable crime problem. And we tried to go, the big thing was crack cocaine. So our big job was just trying to make traffic stops, trying to do things pertaining to crack cocaine or warrants, just anything that we can try to make a difference and kind of suppress some of that.
Okay. All right. So sorry, I just had to ask that. But,
So
so you and your partner?
So me and my partner. So first thing I said, hey, just know two things about me. I can shoot and I can drive. As soon as I said it, I hit the back of a car.
Literally as soon as that.
As soon as it got out of my mouth. And
I bet you they said, I don't want to see you shoot.
Right. When I said I could shoot, but it wasn't. It was just a minor. It was a big.
It's a minor.
And we're laughing. And back then I reported right to the lieutenant, and I'm calling, and I'm just laughing. Like, what's so funny is you won't believe this. So, at least hopefully I can shoot better than I can drive.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was just, that one time thing, that one thing.
Yeah.
So we got over there pretty good.
Did you brag anymore after that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, right?
Another lesson learned.
Lesson learned. Yes. Don't say a word.
So you were talking about the community policing deal. You said I'm a cop. I don't, and that's obviously non-traditional law enforcement.
And that was a new concept around that.
Back then
Community
was.
policing, yeah.
And it still is evolving because if I asked you back then if you thought that someday we would have a specialized mental health unit or the home task force and all these things. So was that something you said you kind of obviously understood why that was important then, but how was everyone else taken to that? Because you were at that time had not been here too long.
Right.
And of course there were folks that had been a lot longer. So what was the attitude toward that then?
Yeah.
At first it was, like I said, it was different because we hadn't done it. But after a while, when we got the streetlights on, then we got those no parking signs, then you start to see
the results
of it, right? And back then we did a lot of drug stings where the narcotics would buy drugs and then they put the package together. We come and arrest, some of the people later on. we can identify these people by pictures, by sight. So it was working. And we would get this package, and the package had all the affidavits in it, and had pictures of the individuals and all the charges. And we go out there and just boom, 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 pick them off pretty quick because we knew who they were. We knew where they hung out. We knew everything about them.
From looking at paper.
From looking at paper, right, because we do the pattern. So it worked. And then where it really started resonating with me is the Baskins card was always a 2-person card, non-FTO. So what we started doing was got with the shift commanders, we'll take the Baskins card during the evenings and you let those deputies go elsewhere. So once we started doing that, they took the 2-person card away. Now it's just a 1-person card because, not because of something I did,
right?
But just because with the community policing was so effective, we were just everywhere doing everything. So I think it helped.
So in time, people saw the results and that it made a difference.
And in time, and people would come to us for every, to identify. We had a book. In that book, we had everybody's picture in it. And we passed the book around from shift to shift to shift so people can see who these individuals are. So it was a bunch of buy-in. And we didn't know at the time what we were doing. We just know, wow, this is pretty good. It's pretty effective. It's working pretty well.
So was that kind of the first attempt at community policing for this agency?
They had it in North County, but it was like officially in the South End. North County had it.
As far as being able to actually move the needle, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So being in Omega, that was kind of more of a reactive place, whereas community policing is more proactive. And what can we do to
Omega was my speed at that time. I loved it. And community policing wasn't, but I got to understand community policing better. It is, and taking somebody to jail doesn't solve the problem temporarily, but it's just temporarily.
Yeah, it's just moving the problem.
That's right. So I had to understand, hey, there's a bigger picture to this. And you get another thing that you remember about community policing is you make relationships with some of the people in there. And there's a lot of good people. And I think sometimes people,
I'm sure a majority are good people.
They are, and they get misjudged or mislabeled, but there's a lot of good people who are trying to do like everybody else. Just take care of their families, work hard and do things that you do in life. But some people in the neighborhood makes it harder for other people to do it. So I enjoyed the relationships, and it was weird because I left the community policing. But when I was a patrol captain, I would go in there as a lieutenant, and I would talk to these people that I haven't seen in years. And we just pick up a conversation like it was nothing. And I had no problem doing that. So that was pretty good. And I haven't been there in a while, but that's what it was about. And I hate to say cliche-ish, but that was a big part of it.
Well, it makes sense to me. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You can't always, I like that too. I mean, taking people to jail just moves the problem.
Well, there's people that need to go to jail.
For sure.
Well, of course.
And you take
sure.
them, right? You take it. And the big problem was, crack cocaine was a big issue there too. And it was prevalent, but not everybody. A lot of times people coming from other neighborhoods into the neighborhood to buy whatever they need and go home. So we took pride in trying to clean up the best we could, and it worked. It definitely worked.
So community policing, the traffic unit or DUI?
Then I went to the DUI unit. Now that was probably the best assignment I ever had in my life because it was weird. Imagine a room full of alphas, and we're arguing about everything inside the room. But once we leave the room, you couldn't say anything to anybody else if you weren't part of that group. So that unit was, we wouldn't have had it. Worked hard, free reign just to go, and all you did was chase drunks around. But we had to do a little more than that. Anytime there's an alarm, if there's an in progress call, you get the alert tone. And that tells you something's happening, so everybody's kind of paying attention to it. Whenever alert tone would go off, they knew the step unit or echo unit, we're going to that call. So we could be anywhere, anytime, any place you didn't know, but you knew those Mustang. We had Mustang 5.0s. And you knew those Mustangs are coming everywhere. So the best thing to do is pull over and get out of the way because we're coming, left, right. It doesn't matter. We're going to go there. And we're going at a pretty high rate of speed also. So
that was just an operational thing, like you guys are going to go because you're out there?
We're going to go because we're out there.
Hey, why don't we have those Mustangs anymore?
Yeah, we don't.
That's a good question. Ricky, you would know this. That Mustang, it was very fast, but it didn't stop good. It didn't turn good. So there was
To get where you're going, if it's in a straight line.
they've been
Yeah,
rebuilt.
straight lines,
Yes.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we took them to the end of their life. I mean, we earned it.
I think those special service package Mustangs is what they were. And talking about being kind of having newer equipment and stuff, a lot of most people that had those, there were not a lot of them made because they're actually worth a lot of money now.
Right.
But mostly it was state and federal agencies that had those,
Yes.
like highway patrols and stuff. So
Yes.
I think Clearwater had some.
Clearwater had some too.
And then we had some, and obviously FHP. But as far as a municipal or county, there weren't a lot of them.
There weren't. And I'm telling you this. We modified the Mustangs also. We took the front seat out. We modified a cage that was in the back seat, just the one back seat, like
You take a prisoner.
like an L shape.
Right.
Right. So you can take a prisoner in it. So I'm thinking like, man, it doesn't get any better than this. You know, I've got the Mustang. I'm not taking calls for service. I'm out there we call it chasing drunks around. Boy, it doesn't get better than this.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Wow.
yeah.
It was a lot of work because you had a lot of court time. You know, it was a lot of work because attorneys are going to try to challenge it. Even if they're falling down, staggering drunk, they're going to try to do what they can to challenge it. But I took it as a challenge because in that unit, I didn't want to fall down drunks. That's not a challenge. I wanted the impairment cases. So we tried to do the impaired.
Because they're harder to.
They're harder. Because
So that
it's
means somebody who's close to the limit,
close
to the
limit,
0.08.
yes. 08 or yes. Right there, they're just under. Right. So patrol would call us, and I knew we would take drunks for patrol too. That's the one thing that most deputies don't want to investigate.
It takes so long.
But if you look at the statute book, it tells you all the elements of a crime. But a DUI, it doesn't lay the elements out for you. So most people don't want to take them unless they're falling down, staggering drunk. So we would do that for patrol because they don't want to. It's a pain. They don't want to take it. So we would go to patrol because you know it's going to be. We call it an easy stat. That's an easy stat. So we get it. Taking the CBT, but it worked out well.
Central breath testing?
Central breath testing, yes. See, look, you remember that, right?
So how long? So from the time, like when? So obviously they had the Mustangs. We're talking like 1994, 1995 in there somewhere. So you've been on for a few. What was there something? Did you put in for the DUI position, or was that appealing to you?
I did put it. It was appealing to me because I love those Mustangs, seeing them zipping around. I really didn't. At that time, I didn't really care much about doing DUIs per se.
Right.
I just wanted
Just
that
in
nice
a
wanted the
car.
car.
Yes,
Yeah.
I had that nice Mustang.
So first it was Miami Vice to get to Florida, then
Yes.
the car to get to
Oh,
DUI.
there's a theme here.
I'll take. You know what? What do you drive? A Lamborghini?
Right.
Yeah.
I turn it in for a Mustang.
Yeah.
I'm good with the Mustang.
And you're probably just a major now because you like the shiny
That's right.
That's
That's
stuff on
right.
the
That's
uniform.
shiny
Yeah,
stuff in the
it's all
uniform.
about the look. It's all about the
right.
appearance.
That's what it is.
And having fun. But, you know, and seriously, I knew people that were in DUI squad. Those guys were squared away. They were hardworking deputies. But it's just, you know, the reputation of being in that squad. And they had a reputation, United States wide, of being one of the best. You know, so I wanted to be a part of that.
So the reputation, I mean, so today, obviously, there's a lot of technology that helps. Was it pretty much the same? I mean, you have the breathalyzers. Did you have the DRE certifications and things like that back then?
We had the
Drug
breath-
recognition
Recognition
experts.
experts.
Yes, I was a DRE, and I was a DRE instructor.
Okay.
So that was just starting to come in at that point to DRE. So
That was a new thing.
That was a new thing. That was it because you couldn't testify to horizontal gaze and stagnance HCN unless you were a drug recognition expert. So
What?
once we became, yes,
That
that's just
was a lot.
Yep.
the involuntary movement of the eyes.
There we go. Okay.
So just look at it like this.
Yeah.
On a nice rainy day, your windshield wipers glide and smooth. That's how your eyes look when you're no alcohol. Take those same windshield wipers when it's not raining, it's how they bounce across. That is an indicator that there's some substance aboard, whether it's alcohol or drugs, whatever the case is.
Okay.
So a drug recognition expert allow you to testify to that. Somebody's showing signs of impairment, but it's not alcohol. So it's something else aboard. So I went through the drug recognition school, and I was a drug recognition instructor.
So you could actually figure out from the different physiological signs what
Yes.
drugs
you had
they
to
were
go
on?
through like a 7-step, and it's been a long time, but seven-step exam to take like the blood pressure, look at the pupil size. There was a lot of steps involved, and I don't remember all the steps now, but I know there's a lot of steps involved to it. And Ricky talked about technology. Back then, we had to write this whole synopsis of everything we did. I'm
For
not
that
sure
one individual.
But it went individual.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
after we did the breath test. That was after to go through the whole DUI process. They had another process for the DRE exam.
So you could testify as an expert witness?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and it wasn't alcohol, but something on
Yeah.
board. So we did, and I tell you a funny story about this.
We like those.
Are you sure you want to share this?
I think I'll share
If
this.
I know what you're- okay.
I think I'll share this.
Okay.
Laura knows what I'm talking about. So we just got the brand new Central Breath Test Facility, CBT,
Which is at the jail.
at the jail.
Okay.
So they have those half petitions. If you sit in, it's not full. So we were doing a DRE. People that were trying to become DREs, they came to our facility and wants to bring the drunk person in. We let them do a DRE if they, didn't have any alcohol present. So it's like a certification. And there were people from all over the state of Florida in our CBT. So I was doing my DUI. And another deputy brought a drunk person in. And this person just could see the top of my head. And she says in loud voice, "Oh my God, look at that giant milk dud." So I'm just thinking to
Was she a little
myself,
high too? She was hungry?
she was something. And I'm saying to myself, you just scarred me for the rest of my life.
Oh, man.
Never live a name like that down.
And that one time, usually if you go into CBT, imagine having 20 people with 20 different conversations. Because everybody had a person that they were arresting. So there's different conversations. It was absolutely quiet, like in church at that particular time.
So everybody heard it.
Everybody heard it. Everybody
That's
heard it. So
fantastic.
if you hear somebody call me Milk Dud, they know me from way
From back then?
in the day. Yes,
and I
they were
hate to
there.
break it to you, but now a whole new generation
Of
is going to
course.
start calling
It's
you
gonna
Milk
know.
Of
Dud.
course.
No,
Yeah.
Of
This
course.
records,
Of
yeah.
course. But,
We're not cutting this part out.
of course, but you talk about things like that. I mean, that was at the time you just kind of like, oh my gosh. But you look back and you laugh at that because that's something that
yeah.
you remember. That's what it was about. And it was just, you laugh about it. And when she left,
It's over.
it's over. Because they were
you're the
killing
milk
me.
dud.
They were killing me. Yes, absolutely.
You
So-
weren't a rookie anymore, but you were still.
I wasn't a rookie, but I was a milk dud.
It could have been worse. Could have happened like year one. And
It
then
could
you
have.
got-
True,
It-
true.
it
You got a
could
couple
have.
years in. So DUI is obviously something you really like doing. You spent some time in there, and
I did
What is
DUIs.
what is it about it? I mean, it's a complex investigation. It's meaningful.
I think it's meaningful, like you said. It's pretty serious because you see. Let me step back. One thing I learned about DUIs, I don't think people drive impaired intentionally. I just don't think people realize how impaired they are, if that makes sense to you. Because I used to go in some of these classes where we were doing like a controlled study, and I had to drink until I thought I was intoxicated. I'm like, I'm feeling pretty good. And I had that portable breath. I'm like, wow, wow. So I don't think people intentionally go DUI, but it doesn't matter. Once the damage is done, it's done.
Sure.
And it can be a complicated investigation, but I'm out there, it's the thrill of the chase or the hunt. You're hunting these DUIs down. You're trying to get somebody before they hurt somebody else. So you're trying to take them off. And we had so much competition that every year they would call it the MAD Awards, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. If you got 100 plus DUIs, you go to the steps of Tallahassee and get an award. We won that in 6 months. I didn't want a year. That's way too, we're not doing that. 6 months is and we tried to outdo each other to get that goal. And the whole unit would go to get these awards.
Wow.
And if it was 100, we were like, you're laughing at you, 100? Now, I'm not sure what their numbers, if they still have it today or what the numbers are. I know they're involved in a little more now than we were back then. But we did DUIs. And when the school's opening, we did the school zones, when the schools first opened. Now, I didn't like that at the time because I was a night guy. And now I'm up in the morning, with the schools. But there was a reason for it. It served a purpose. So that was just so fun to me because you never knew what you're going to get yourself into. Because no two drunks are the same.
Right. So what's your favorite drunk story?
I have a lot of those, but the favorite drunk story is I stopped a guy for DUI, and he was coming from a Christmas party. And I told him that we're going to do the FSTs, or field sobriety test. And he said, I'm not taking these racially biased tests. I said, it's not racially biased. I'll give this test to everybody because I need to see if you're impaired or not. And he was just so argumentative. This is a racially biased test. I said, how? It does. I said, I don't know what you are, who you are when I pull you over. I just see your driving pattern. I don't stop you for anything else other than your driving. Now, back then also, talk about technology, we had in-car cameras to let us videotape the driving. Those old VHSs, and I know some of you probably don't. Laura, you might be with me on that, right?
I remember them.
I know
Wait,
what
we
a
didn't know
VHS is.
VHSs. We had
Kind
those.
rewind. Pop into a Blockbuster.
Yes, the Blockbuster
I read about it in the
VHS.
encyclopedia.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we had VHS, but we didn't have. They were just mounted inside the cars, but we had the body mics on us. You know, so it would pick up everything audio wise, but video is just in the car. So we didn't know. You just seen who you're. You know, we saw the driving pattern, so we can go to court to testify to it. So this guy, we just went forever and ever like racially motivated. I'm like, please stop with these biases. It's not a biased test. So it was funny because the guy thought he was so intelligent. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're telling me. You have no idea how bad you're going to look on video. So we would go to court, pop the video in, and the guy looked at the attorney and said, I'm guilty. You know, we don't want to go through this. So it was challenging that time. It was motivating to me. At this point, I need a new challenge. So I went to the traffic unit.
This is daytime.
As a daytime. Actually, let me think. The sergeant became the sergeant, so I was a corporal in the unit.
In DUI?
In the DUI.
Okay.
So that was a different challenge because now your responsibilities are changing. You're more like, doing like the administrative stuff just to, I would get out there and play, but it was more taking care of the CBT, central breath testing, making sure all the paperwork is done, the P's, just that. So it was a challenge, but I wanted a little more of a challenge. So I went to my old lieutenant. I'm going to put you on day shift. I was like, I don't want that much of a challenge. I like where I'm at because it's too hot, too much traffic per se. So you need to go to the traffic unit. And I used to hate writing traffic tickets. I hated that. And the reason why is because you always stop this guy who probably didn't have two nickels rubbed together. And you have to give this individual a traffic ticket. I hated that. I did it because it was my job, but I used to hate that. Yeah. I just felt so bad about that. Unless you talk yourself into it.
Yeah.
So I did that
because
for
you
a
have
while.
discretion.
You have discretion.
Yeah, I
You
was
do
going
have
to say,
discretion.
can you
do.
educate as opposed to
You can.
back then? Anyways,
You can.
Yeah.
And sometimes people, you can educate. And it was, talk about technology. My famous line was press hard, 5 copies when they're signing it. Because it wasn't this automated, DL swiper and all that. You had to take and write everything by hand. So you write those citations out and people want to argue with you. It's not it's not a mission of guilt. Just saying you show up to court, whenever the court date is, make sure you press hard 5 copies. Well, being like you are, I wouldn't let them touch my pens. I had a pen for them. Now, let's put the pen out. You use this pen. I'm not sharing. This is not a community pen for me.
Right.
It's for you all,
Right.
but not for me.
Right.
So, press hard 5 copies, and you would give them an actual yellow copy inside an envelope. So it's just technology has changed, but I hated doing that.
Well, because you hated writing, because once arms happened, you threw all your pens in the trash, and then you went into a unit where you had to write. Is that what I'm hearing?
There you go. That's exactly what you're hearing. That's exactly it. So, see, I'm getting
listening.
relaxed
I'm
now.
listening.
There
I'm
you go.
listening.
There you go. I'm relaxing now. But it was just so hard to write tickets. But again, everything, there's a purpose. If you deserve it, I had no problem giving you one. And I had no problem doing my job, but it just felt bad
Right.
for doing that because, you want to educate people. But boy, it's tough to take money out of somebody's pocket. That's, you're working hard for that money. And
And then it can start the cycle. If they can't pay for their ticket, then their license is suspended, and then they can't go to their job, and then they can't take care of their kids.
Right.
And
That's exactly right. So, and remember they used to have this thing called financial responsibility suspension. So if you had, let's say you're with insurance company A and you went to insurance company B, insurance company A would tell the state of Florida, you don't have insurance. Now with a different company, just you don't have insurance. So they would suspend your license on the FR suspension, which is the financial responsibility suspension. Boy, those were tough too, because you stop a car and it was like a financial responsibility, and people had no idea that their license are suspended because they just knew that they changed from one insurance company to the other. But the state was reporting you don't have insurance. So boy, you had to be, you had to figure this stuff out. Like, wait a minute, is this, do you really know what's going on, or are you just playing games? It was just a mess.
Yeah.
It was a mess.
And probably can't get the information and confirmation as quick as you can now, obviously.
Not with the MDTs, especially by the last name of Smith or Jones. And you would, it was different. It was definitely different.
Yeah. So, one more DUI question. What was well, actually two. How many DUIs lifetime do you have that you gave or investigated?
I'm guessing probably 900 maybe.
How long were you in DUI?
4 or 5 years.
Okay.
And I know this because when I first became a sergeant, one of my deputies said, we investigated you and you're okay. I'm like, why am I okay? Because you paid your dues. I'm like, what are you talking about? We looked you up in some of your DUIs arrests you had. So you did your job out there. I was like, well, that's nice. Thanks for letting me know that, for filling me in. So it's I think like 900 might have been the number.
Wow. And then what's the highest blood alcohol level you've ever seen?
Oh,
Wow.
That's a good question.
And how was that person?
That is a good question.
Probably functional. If I
It
was
was very
gonna guess.
functional. So
Absolutely.
it was, we would work 7:30 to 7:30 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. And once we would go to lunch, like at 4 o'clock in the morning, we would have some time to kill. So I saw a car driving with no headlights, and I figured I'm just going to stop this car, kill a little time, and maybe write him a ticket just to see what the deal is with the guy. So I stopped him, and we're having a conversation. And I was like, something's not right with this guy. I don't know what it is. Something's not right. So I said, sir, I'm going to do a DUI investigation on you. We did a DUI investigation, and he nailed it. I mean, nailed it, not an issue.
Like the FSTs.
Like the FSTs.
Yeah. Okay.
So I checked his eyes, and his whole head started turning. So they said, just your eyes. His whole head started turning. And I'm like, wow, I've never seen that.
Right, for the test, like
For the
follow
test,
my
yes,
finger
follow my finger
with just your eyes.
But his whole head would turn left and right, not his eyes. I'm like, well, I've seen a lot of things, but I've never seen this in my life. So I'm going to take you to jail. I took him to CBT, central breath testing.
Oh, I forgot that one.
See that?
He does everybody's
She
job.
she has that one.
You got
Yeah,
it.
sure.
And he blew like a 3-something.
Holy cow.
How are people still alive at that level?
He's a professional.
He's a professional. So I said, we need to go to the hospital. Who are we going to see? We don't know the same people. We're not going to see anybody. I have to get you medically cleared to go to the jail. I'm talking to this guy, and if I didn't see him on eyes, this guy was perfect. Did everything perfect. And we started talking. He said he's an true alcoholic, and he needs to get his numbers up there just so he can function. And he said, if I wouldn't have seen him with his headlights, who knows if I would have stopped him or not. He did perfect on the field sobriety test. The only thing that stopped him was his eyes or his head moving.
Yeah.
That was it.
So you're saying his head was bouncing?
His head was bouncing like his eyes. Yes. And I'm like, I called my other DA, look at this. And they were like, never seen it. And I saw the results. I'm like, this is crazy. So we went to the hospital, got medically cleared, but like, we don't know the same friends. So why am I taking you to the hospital?
See somebody.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning, really?
Oh, man.
Jeez.
Wow. All right. So get DUI and traffic out of your way. What's next?
So next is,
And you're a sergeant at this point?
I'm not, next
Okay.
the sergeant
Sorry,
now.
I'm jumping ahead.
No, that's okay, the sergeant now. So I was, back then they had the drop first came in. And when drop first came in, they were giving tests almost like on a monthly basis for sergeant's exams. And I took the test, and I didn't expect to do well. I just took it just so I can
See what's
know
on
the
it.
process.
Right.
So it was just weird how they had the rules of when they promoted you. It was like the rule of, for one opening, they can go down so many places, 2 openings, so many places. So I took the test, and I passed it. And we had a Christmas party, and I was in patrol at the time. And the sheriff was like, hey, I'm promoting some people. and I'm not
And
paying
at this
it.
point, this is
Not-
Coates?
No, this
Rice,
is Chef
right.
Rice. This is
Okay.
like in the late 90s,
Okay,
early
okay.
2000s, 2002, 2003. So you have to understand that everybody were jokesters back then. Everybody did their impersonation, impression of the sheriff. Everybody would call, and I was having a squad meeting, and everybody's like, "Hey, are you going to get promoted to sergeant?" So they make these fake phone calls, and I'm like, stop it, because you try not to think about it. But I would be lying if I said I didn't think about it, but you try not to think about it. So we were having a meeting, and I think it was the old SAB, and we're having a meeting. So the phone rang, and this is Sheriff Rice's secretary. Sheriff want to talk to you. And it was like 2 or 3 minutes. I hung the phone up. Called back again. I said, I know, this is Sheriff secretary want to talk to me. Hung the phone up. Well, and I'm like, guys, quit playing around. I'm tired of this playing around. We need to get it. So the sheriff came, and he had a memo, that back in the memo with the name on it. He's like, you don't want to be promoted, huh?
Oh, he came in? He came down? That's awesome.
Then he laughed. He's like, well, I know everybody's joking around. And I said, whoa.
Yeah.
You tore up your memo?
Yeah, he had it back there, but just
That's funny.
It was because people just play around, But it was good fun, good spirits, but just like stop it, because nobody sees themselves being promoted. I didn't see myself being promoted, especially with that tenure in the agency. I'm not ready to be a sergeant. I'm not going to be a sergeant. And it was funny because the first day I put the uniform on, I'm walking around with doing like this.
Covering up
Co-
that.
Covered up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Make sure nobody take these stripes from me. Not, make sure they're mine.
I thought it was no one knew you were a sergeant, didn't ask any
because
questions or
you
expect
just-
anything of you.
You just didn't want people to take them like this isn't real. Am I
Right.
doing something illegal with these stripes? So
Right.
it was different. And the sheriff told me, he said, I'm going to put you in HR when the sergeant retires. It could be a week, it could be a month, it could be a year, but you're going to patrol until that time. So I went to patrol, and I was in the city of Dunedin. I had the best time as a sergeant. Boy, we had so much fun. We had good sergeants, good lieutenants. We were just having a good time. So this is January. I went to shift change in July, and I'm thinking, well, maybe they forgot. And I'm not saying a word because I'm
Having a good time,
I'm
right?
having an excellent time. I got the phone call, hey, you're going to HR in August. I'm like, man, I thought you guys forgot about me. But no, they didn't. And it was, it was so much fun. I love DUI, but I think the sergeant was probably the most fun position I ever had because you're leading, but you're still like on the ground floor, so to speak, just to be an effective leader, to be out there doing that. Boy, it was just so much fun. And the sergeants I worked with, lieutenants I worked with, boy, we were all ex-special ops guys, DUI, traffic, and we were very competitive. And I'll never forget this. We were going to a call northbound 819 in Dunedin, and there's 3 sergeants. And like, look at this.
Wishing you had that Mustang.
Yes. I had a all unmarked Crown Vic at that time. I was okay with that too.
Yeah, it's not bad,
Because
yeah.
that thing had no cage in the back, so I was okay with it. But we're looking at him, boy, look at this. And the lieutenant just loved it because it was so fun. And we just got along so well. I mean, I said, this is what it's about. I really enjoyed what I was doing. I really started enjoying it more. And then I went to HR, day shift. I'm wearing a tie. I'm driving an unmarked car. Like, I'm not built for this. I didn't sign up for this, but I had a good time in HR too. It's just learning more of the admin and just doing something different. It's different, but I got used to it. And my wife is like, you don't seem as happy on day shift as you were on evening shift. It's taking adjustment. I mean, I'm so used to working night shift. So now, if I'm up past 11 o'clock, man, I will not make it. And that's pushing it, but it's different. So I was a sergeant and said HR for, patrolling HR, and this was good.
So what was your role in HR as a sergeant?
I wasn't a background investigator, but I put all the files together for law enforcement.
Did you supervise the background
I
investigator?
did supervise the background investigators,
So
yes.
the same way it is.
Same way it is now, right. And I would present everything to the lieutenant. This is who we want to hire. I was on all the interview boards. So I got to tell you a story about HR too. So when I was in HR, we took pride in, just like now, there's no science to hiring people. Don't let them tell you there's no science. It's a crapshoot. Mm-hmm. So you want to try to mitigate some things if you can help it. So we hired a guy, and I'll never forget this story. He worked in another city police department, and they didn't have take-home cars. So the captain of the agency called me. This guy's a good officer. I had to give him discipline because we didn't have take-home cars. I went to the read-off, and I told all the deputies that whoever damages a car and don't report it, you're going to get some time off. So this individual was taking his car back to the garage. They said, hey, we need to put on the lift to lift it up. And he had undercarriage damage on it. So the captain said, I couldn't tell if he did it or not. So I had to discipline him for it, but he's a good person. I said, okay, we'll take a chance because the record was spotless. We'll take a chance on that. He's in the FTO program, and our training started to get a little more advanced. We just started pit training. And he was pit
Precision
training.
mobilization
technique, right. So he just started pit training. So he had a Mustang. He had a fancy Mustang for his own car. And he's going through the city of Oldsmar racing somebody else. So our deputies attempted to stop him, and I think he just panicked. So he took off, and they're pursuing him.
And I was going to say, this guy was in my recruit class.
So you remember?
So yeah,
you know what I'm talking about, Laura, right?
So he had been hired.
He was in the FTO program.
Okay.
He was in his
uniform, gun, radio,
yes, uniform, gun, and radio that night
In his personal car.
in his personal car,
in his Mustang.
And he's got the same uniform wearing. He's got the radio. He's got everything except for he's in his own personal car.
Listening to the stop being called out on the radio.
Yes.
What?
And they stopped him at 275 in Tampa. And the deputy said it was the weirdest thing that you had to do it to another deputy. He ended up going to jail.
It was an actual pursuit.
It was a pursuit, yes.
Because they knew who he was.
They knew he was,
they
right.
Knew,
and they knew he had the radio listen.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about that because I'm working. I'm in the bed now at night because I'm a day shift guy, right? So I get into my office, and the FTO sergeant came and put the credentials on my desk. And I'm like, what are you doing? He was arrested last night. I said, ha, that's real funny, but I'm not in the mood for that.
Right.
Really, he was arrested last night. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Well, he told me the story that we just talked about. So Lieutenant looked at me, he said, see, don't let other people tell you how good somebody is because you're buying their used goods, so to speak. Mm-hmm. No, but the guy looked good on paper, but you don't know. So that's a lesson learned.
Wow.
Super nice guy, really good at his job.
And he just panicked.
Yeah.
Imagine being a rookie and you're racing another car and you don't know how to handle it. So he,
And
I actually can't imagine that.
Probably everything would have been.
It would have been.
Yeah.
It would have been nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop. That was before body-worn cameras. And patrol at that time, not all patrol had those in-car videos, just select few. Mm-hmm. So he probably would have been okay.
Yeah.
So just, you never know.
Can you imagine listening to your own pursuit on the radio?
Yeah.
And blacking out and then hearing them say, where'd he go? And
That's so
that was
weird.
a crazy
It was different.
situation.
So I have to admit, and I know you spent time in HR twice, but I have an agency bucket list, and something on my agency bucket list is going in for file review with the sheriff. Because I know
That would be fun.
Because I know that you all do tremendous work, and I know that a lot of applicants have something of interest that needs to be brought to the sheriff's attention.
Yes.
And some of the stories I hear out of there are just...
And they're true.
They're true.
They're true.
Can you tell us some of them?
Well, when I first went up there, and our sheriff, he's business, but he'll laugh about things, and don't want you to see him laughing. Laugh about it.
You've only been captain in there under Sheriff Colter,
yes,
right? Okay.
But I presented all the files. Right. I had to present. So what happens is, we go up every Thursday, and we have a list of files. So I did all law enforcement. Sergeant Mobley did the the detention, and I did the non-sworn. And then we would share some, depends on how many we had. So you put the file in front of the sheriff, and there was the actual file.
And this is a binder.
This
really.
is a binder.
Yeah.
And you go through and you give them like a synopsis of everything in the binder. And you have to tell the good, the bad, the ugly. And, sometimes you tell the sheriff, because you don't want the sheriff you want to tell him. I don't want him to find it. I want to tell him about it. So I learned my lesson. He always goes to the polygraph part first. So there's something in the polygraph, hey, you need to make sure you tell them. So hey, you would have different things that you wanted to see. So I was up there and I put a picture of somebody looked like the Penguin in front of him.
Like from Batman?
From Batman. So
Like the hat and everything?
it was just a dress.
Oh, okay.
The dress, it looked like a penguin. It looked like, so I'm like, so I presented that. And it was different from the file. It was like on the picture by itself. And he looked at that picture. And I'm like, oh boy. And he just started laughing. Like, whoo, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
So, you just never know what you're going to get. But you go through it and you present the whole file to the sheriff, and he'll ask you questions about it. So I try to get it where I knew it on top of my head, where I'm not, looking down.
Get an idea of what he's going to ask
Get an
about.
idea.
And,
You had, but
right.
you thought you did, Ricky, but you didn't.
Right.
Because if you prepare for this, then he's going to ask you something here.
Right.
And you never know.
You never know.
But it's the one thing I enjoyed about that job. I enjoyed a lot of things about it, but the thing is, I understood that not everybody's perfect, but I also understand that people need a chance. And the one file I can remember, and I told the sheriff, I said, this guy, I'm going to try to fight for him. And we went through the whole process, and he ended up hiring a guy. And he asked the questions, he had the answers for it. And sometimes you just got to give people a chance. And so that was a good thing about that job, because you're giving people a chance. Now, I wasn't always right.
Right.
Because you just never know. Remember, there's no science to it.
That's why is that guy still here?
I don't know. I try not to look back. Once you got him hired, I
did your part.
I did my part.
Right.
I did my part.
No one came and slammed his credentials on your desk.
That's right.
So far, so good.
I didn't get that, but it was satisfying, because you have to, and maybe not law enforcement, just in general. You want to give people a chance to prove themselves, and I was afforded that opportunity, and that's something that people don't get a chance to do. And I did it for like 2.5 years. That was good, because the sheriff was one way, and Chief Simmons is a different way. So it was, but you got to keep them both,
Right.
balanced for both. And it just taught me so much how to balance everything. And it was, they worked hard, but boy, we had fun doing it.
So you were sergeant in HR.
Yes.
Did you go anywhere else as sergeant, or you got promoted?
I got promoted I got promoted. I was in HR, and I was in patrol for a little bit, and I got promoted.
So you went back to patrol.
Back
as
to patrol
a sergeant.
I'm sorry. I was promoted to sergeant,
lieutenant.
then sergeant in HR, and I got promoted to lieutenant in patrol.
Okay.
Shift commander.
Shift commander. Well, yes, but I was back. I don't know if you guys know, but we just had 8-hour shifts. Remember those? You guys, you probably remember that. So we had 8-hour shifts, and they were called Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. So the new lieutenant was always the relief lieutenant. So I worked Sunday night, Monday night, midnights. I got off Sunday morning. I got off Monday night, Sunday night to Monday night, Monday to Tuesday. So I got off Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. I had to be back Tuesday evening at 3.
Oof.
I worked Tuesday evening, Wednesday evening. I got off Wednesday night at 10:30. Had to be back at 6 on Thursday. That was my shift.
Wow,
It was
what a
released.
schedule.
That was the best time of my life.
What? Really? What?
Yes, because I didn't have any responsibility other than the P's and the V's.
You show up?
Because let's just say you had a shift, I couldn't break it. Just leave it like I found it. So it's just trying to cut your teeth in a sense, just to get you to see what it's like to be a lieutenant.
So the new person got stuck
The
with
new
that.
person got stuck with that. Boy, and I'm just thinking like, this is weird. But all 3 shifts had different issues.
Yeah.
And you learn how to deal with the people, but the crimes were different. So it was hard on your body. But boy, it was good. I mean, you're a new lieutenant.
And I mean, and shift commanders have a tremendous role in the agency, really.
Yes.
Particularly, I mean, always, but now, I mean, we have the 12-hour shift, so we have, four different shifts. And it's really a big job because the way the sheriff's office is structured for patrol, we have North District, which is everything north of Gulf to Bay, and Central District, which is everything south of Gulf to Bay. And there's one individual, essentially, that's in charge of all sheriff's office units in those different areas, and there's a lot going on.
So as a lieutenant, I was lucky because I had the relief shift, plus I had my own shift on Central District. I had a shift in North District, and I was the admin lieutenant. So the admin lieutenant.
That's luck? You said that you were lucky to have that?
Well, I thought at the time, but it was the admin lieutenant. I was in charge of all the contract cities. And, you learn to deal with the different mayors and city managers, but also had to do like all the projects that came in. We're going to try something new. So it taught me how to, my admin skills, but it also taught you to, just to be well-rounded. And you didn't get everything force-fed at one time. It took a while to learn. So it was good because, like you said, Ricky, at some points on midnights, you're it. You're running it. And here I am, a rookie lieutenant. And when I got my own shift, it was central days here. I had people that had more time in lunch than I did as a deputy, and they told me that.
Yeah.
But, those guys in Squad 1, they were salty dogs. It got to the point where if they didn't see me for like a week, hey, Lieutenant, where you been? We haven't seen you. So they taught me a lot about, how to, now you're starting to do more admin, less hands-on, more admin. So they taught me a lot about that, but they taught me to be yourself. And they taught me to go down there and just, talk to everybody and see what's going on. And I would try to take calls with them. I would try to no, we just want you here. And it was crazy to see that I'm sitting at this table and we're trying to divvy up time off. And I'm looking around on my sleeves here for my service patches. And I'm like 12 years and these guys are 20, 25. So I'm like,
right,
this is crazy, but I'm in charge of these guys.
Right.
But after a while, there was some trust in there. And I knew I arrived when they all bought me a bottle of Grey Goose for Christmas time at my house.
There you go.
Off duty. I said, boy, and my youngest daughter, it's like, Dad, I don't know if somebody's walking up to her house and I just see this big bottle of Grey Goose and I can't see who's behind it. So I knew
right.
It was a big bottle.
That is a big bottle.
It was a big bottle. And I knew I arrived when they bought it. Yes,
but that's
arrived.
That's something I think that supervisors and leaders wherever you are run into, where you're in this position and you're supervising people or you're working with people that have a lot more experience than you do.
Absolutely.
And as long as you sort of acknowledge that and listen to what those people have to say, it's all good. So, Lieutenant, you get promoted captain when?
I get promoted captain November, I think, of 2011.
Okay, and then you go to
and
where?
I went to the court. I'll never forget this phone call. Sheriff Coterian called me up. Said, I'm going to make you captain. And I'm putting you in the courts. And I'm thinking to myself, courts? I don't know. Sheriff said, there's a lot more going on than what you think. He said, you'll be surprised at what's going on out there. I said, okay. So I went out there my first week. And coming from a patrol background, I always thought that bad people were handcuffed. What I didn't know is if they're in a court session and there's a jury, they can't be handcuffed.
Right.
So I've got 2 high-profile trials, and I look in the door and I see these individuals not being handcuffed. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got a lot of work to do with these guys because they let these people handcuff. No, Captain, that's not how that works.
Right.
You got to learn how this process works.
Yeah.
So I will say this about judicial operations. They do so much behind the scenes that people don't have any idea what goes on. And I'm talking about my ASU program, alternative sentencing unit.
Right.
I'm talking about misdemeanor probation.
So we're gonna grill you about judicial operations because that's what you actually currently do.
Okay.
So as captain, you spent some time at JOB and then
A lot of time in JOB.
Then you went back to HR.
I went to patrol.
Okay, patrol. Okay.
Yes,
Oh.
and then I went back to JOB. Then I went to HR.
Okay. So patrol, you
Like
CDS,
Central
I was
or-
CDS.
Captain?
I was a captain of patrol.
For
Yeah,
Central.
Central District
Okay.
Patrol. Yeah.
and then back to HR.
Then I went back. No, then I went back to JOB.
To JOB.
And then I went to HR.
Wow.
You bounced
Because
around
that's
quite a
what
bit.
I was like. You were a captain at HR when I started
Yes.
down
Right.
Yes.
With school crossing
Yep.
guards.
Yep.
And so that was like almost 10 years.
I was
as
a captain for probably 10 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask me, I would say, 5 years and 5 turns to 10. It flies so far though.
Mm-hmm.
But I've done a lot of things as a captain.
Yeah.
It's
That's a lot more than some.
It's a
I
lot.
think so, yeah.
It's a lot, and you just learn so much about what you don't know,
Yeah.
and that's the main thing about There's no school to be a captain. There's no school for any position that you're in. You learn by trial and error, by watching other people. But boy, it's just you're making that decision, and you have to live with that decision.
Yeah.
And it's you're not going to get it right, but you do the best you can. That's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
So you get promoted to major,
I get promoted to major.
go to judicial operations.
Go to Judicial
And
Operations.
now we can talk about this. So I will say, without a shadow of a doubt, I am one of those people that until you get out there and see how much is going on, and I still don't know how much is going on, but it's also something that Laura and I in particular see with our Citizens Academy folks, because you talk about all the things going on at the sheriff's office, and I go over the schedule with them. It's only a 10-week program.
Right.
And there are several weeks that could be multiple weeks to talk about something, because you can never possibly cover all of it. So give us a little bit of just a high-level overview of judicial ops and what it does. So we got 5 court facilities now, or is it down to 4?
Well, you have St. Pete now. They just have one facility.
Okay.
Because they closed traffic court. They closed
That's
their
what it was. They closed traffic
county
court, and that
court
threw me
also.
off.
Just when we opened up the annex, they closed their county court. So
4 facilities.
4 facilities.
So 4 facilities, 50-something judges.
Yes, and they're going to close traffic court probably in the summertime. It's
Okay.
going to just relocate. The work is still there, it's just a different location.
Okay. So we'll be down to 3 court facilities.
Yes.
And of course, judicial ops is responsible for all that
So
security there.
Our job is a lot of things, but high level. We have to screen people coming in to make sure there's no weapons or anything getting through that doesn't belong there. In addition to that, we have to protect the judges. We have to protect everybody. It doesn't matter what side of the you're sitting on. Defendants, everybody has to get treated equal. That's just one part of it, though. There's so much stuff that we have to do beforehand just to prepare for that trial. Now, if you look at it, there's 2 different parts to it. There's hearings and there's trials, and they're not the same. We have hearings every day. We have trials Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But Monday and Friday, they're preparing for those trials with the hearings, if that makes sense to you. Plus, you have advisory court. In addition to that, we have these programs, alternative sentencing, where in lieu of incarceration, people under programs. In addition to that, we have misdemeanor probation. In addition to that, we have all the court processing. And that's
A lot of paperwork moving
That's a lot of
around.
paperwork, right? So we have criminal
Evictions
court.
and things.
Evictions. We have criminal court. Then we have civil court and family court. Then we have evictions on top of that. So there's a lot of things that people don't see the inner workings. And I'm going to give credit to the staff because they make it look easy because of what they're doing. But there's a lot of moving parts. So just think about this. The 4th floor is felonies. The 3rd floor is misdemeanors.
And we're talking about the county justice
the county
Center,
justice
which
center,
on
right?
49th Street.
49th Street. So you can have, if there's a jury trial going on, we have to protect everybody in the courtroom, the judge. We have to make sure the jury has not been intimidated by people that are, watching. We have to make sure that the defendant, offender, whatever you want to call them, they're not, we're not violating their rights, but they can't go anywhere. So it's a lot of moving parts. Oh yeah, that can be in one courtroom. You got other things going on in other courtrooms too that people don't see. In addition to that, we have people that are in custody that need to see the judges for whatever reason. So we're responsible for all of that. Then you got people constantly coming through the front mag area, going through the metal detector. So we are everything. And our people dedicated, hard work, and they make it seem like it's so easy. And when you tell people these numbers, what we're doing, they don't believe it because they just don't get it. Even our deputies don't. When we have people transfer, the funny thing to me is when people transfer from another bureau, like I have no idea what goes on. Well, I had no idea that there's so much went on here. I had no idea.
Right.
Because we just know our own job.
So how many folks do you have out there under you?
I have about 300, just under 300 authorized total.
Okay.
Between sworn and then my non-sworn.
And you guys work closely, obviously, with the Department of Detention and Corrections. So they have the court squad.
We have the court squad.
Which is technically JOB, correct?
That's JOB. And what the court squad does, just think of it as grocery shopping in a sense. So we get a list of everybody that's due in court the next day. So we go in the morning and we'll take them from the jail to Judicial Operations. And then we'll strategically place them in the holding cells that are corresponding with their judges. You know, so they never have to leave the complex. Everything is inside. So they call it a tunnel, but it's really like an elevated tunnel. So we go get these individuals, we bring them in, and then we put them behind the courtrooms. They come in, go in, out, in and out, in and out. So we try to be efficient as possible. But sometimes we have something called a red dot where there's somebody who's doing something that causes concern or keeps separate. So
Or like a high profile.
a high profile,
person.
right. So we have to keep everything going. And I can't, if we're keep separate, I mean, we're all together on the same crime. We can't be in earshot or eyeshot of one another, but we're all going to see the same judge. And it's like, you know, once you go, I'm coming in, but we had to keep them separate. So it's a lot of work to it.
That's what it sounds like.
So
Yes.
what are some of the, or if there is what is the most dangerous part, or what are the regular occurrences out there that are the hardest on y'all?
The hardest on us is when there's a verdict coming in. And even at that point, you know that what's done is done, and it's not going to be undone no matter what the verdict is. But somebody is going to be a little more satisfied than the other. So they're both in the courtroom, and there's just a little aisle
between
that
the two.
separates the two. In addition to that, this individual, they're learning what their sentence is. So they're not restrained, because remember, what's the difference between 6 lives and 7 lives of a sentence, right? So that's the part that gets, we're always concerned, but that really gets us to the heightened state of awareness. And just in general, because you don't know what people are going to do. You know, if they try to escape, so what? That's their mentality. So that's the biggest part for us, is we have to be prepared for anything at any time, because you just never know. But really, when the sentencing phase come in, that's when we're heightened. And you see the news, there's everything you can think of in that courthouse. And there's some probably things you don't even think of, you don't know, you don't want to know. So it can be pretty dicey at times, but the group we have, the training we have, we put the deputies to a regular field training also for judicial op. It's a 15-week training course. And we're constantly, on our readouts on Friday, we're constantly doing training things. And we're constantly telling our people, it's today the day. You had to prepare.
Now, were you out there? Were you in JOB in some capacity when that shooting happened at St. Pete?
No, I was in patrol at
the Lions one?
the BJ
Lions.
Yeah, I was in patrol at the time.
Okay.
But as a result of that, thank God that it was BJ Lions.
Yes.
Because BJ was
He had been in training for a long time.
Firearm training forever.
That was
He taught
absolutely
me,
worst
yeah.
case scenario for a bad guy, right?
Absolutely right.
And that was
plus some luck involved, because he did
Yes.
get shot. He did get shot, and it hit his
Yes.
mic.
And it's funny, BJ worked for me in HR before he went out to JLB.
Yeah.
So I know him from HR days.
But
so,
you mentioned it, with the training. But this particular incident was 2011, 2010, somewhere.
it might have been 10. It was
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But an individual walked into the St. Pete courthouse with a backpack.
Yep.
And from the absolute get-go, there was something off with this guy. And fortunately, the deputies were paying attention because, again, and this is just from sitting through Citizens Academy and when we went out there with folks, but there's a reason for literally every security measure that is at the courthouse, from the stanchions and making people walk back and forth so you can see them.
Yep.
But anyway, this guy just was not acting normally. They were on top of it. He was kind of in a hurry, and he comes up to the mag, and he just is going to walk right through. And in the process, he's pulling out his gun, and they engage in a gunfight. But when you mentioned the training and talking about things, that's something that's so important is learning from that. Because I know they've showed that video a million times and said this is exactly why. I know other agencies across the country have used that video because of how well they performed. And it's really one of those, I mean, fortunately, one of those situations where all the training and everything comes together and you get the right outcome.
Yeah.
And I can say this about this agency too. Our training is second to none. And it doesn't matter what component you're in, it's second to none, and it's just automatic. And you're right, because of an unfortunate situation like that, we're always looking at our techniques. We're looking to see if we can get better. Where are we at? It's always self-criticizing or self-constructing. Where are we at, and how can we improve what we're doing? And we take it serious. And like you said, somebody from the outside looking in, we have 3 deputies in the vicinity outside of the magnetometer and then people inside. Is it overkill? Well, it's not overkill. And I'm not going to tell all the details why we're doing it, but it's for a reason. And it's strategic the way we're doing it. So,
Yeah, they're not just standing around.
they're not just standing around.
Right.
Correct. And you hope you never have to use
Absolutely.
it. You hope you never. But if you have to use it, hope you're prepared.
Right.
And it's, I'll do things. I'll go watch and I'll criticize while we're doing a certain thing. And deputies will, no, this is why I'm doing this. I looked at you and I didn't think you were paying attention to people coming in. Oh, we're paying attention. Okay, what color shirt that guy have? He had a purple shirt. They're paying attention.
Right.
So we make sure that this is serious because everything, if you look at all the things that are happening now, people want to place blame.
Right.
And they're going to get everything they can as far as video cameras, whatever it is, and just see where we made the mistake. And you don't want that to happen at all.
Right. Because most people coming into court are not necessarily having a good day.
They're not, Ricky.
So
and then there's, it's two. You have people that are in custody, and then you have people that are remanded into custody. So you're right. They're not having a bet. They're not in court because they did something good.
And even
for
if
the
they're
most
going
part.
to the clerk's office, they're probably annoyed.
Correct.
Because they have to do it.
They
So.
are. You're 100% right about that.
So outside the court security piece, which I know is a huge part of it, but you did mention alternative sentencing and misdemeanor probation and that. So, and this is kind of where there is a little bit of overlap with the Department of Detention and Corrections in that these are alternatives to incarceration
Yes.
where it's pretty expensive to keep somebody in jail. There's a lot of people that don't need to be in jail.
That's correct.
So programming through ASU and misdemeanor probation obviously are alternatives to that.
Yes.
What is, and I know it's very complex, but how are those structured? How do they work?
Well, see, I think you said earlier, Laura, the problem is we don't want people to continue that vicious cycle. And what we don't want for people to do is you're in jail and you have to pay all these fines and you're doing these certain crimes because these fines you're paying. You're not a productive citizen. So the goal is, like I said, to keep the cost of the jail down, but also just make sure these individuals are productive citizens. People do things. Sometimes you get caught. Sometimes, I'm not going to say a mistake. They do things. Sometimes you get caught. Sometimes you don't. It shouldn't be a life sentence.
Yeah.
Now sometimes, but not all the time.
Right.
So we want to give people a chance to, continue to do the right thing, take care of your family, go to work, whatever. Just do something. We don't just break that cycle.
Right.
So we give you a chance, to get on certain programs. Now, some programs you have to wear like an alcohol monitor. Some programs you have to wear like a GPS.
Yeah, I was going to say it runs the gamut depending on what it is.
Depends on what it is, right? And some programs just phone in once a week. So it just depends on your level of crimes or what program is putting you on. But we're trying to do it so just productive citizens.
Yeah, I mean, as the sheriff says, sometimes really, if you're truly, and as you said, people do, they get off track sometimes. They're down on their luck. Some things happen, and really, he'll tell groups like you really kind of have to beg your way into jail.
You do.
If you're truly somebody that's just
You do.
off track for a little bit.
That's correct.
Because of all the alternatives.
That's
And
correct.
that's something that's important. And that's really something that we've been doing for quite some time.
We've
been doing a lot of things. I mean, you're talking about video recording in cars and stuff. I mean,
Yes.
we've had videos recording in all of our cruisers since like 2011, I think, is when we went. So we've been ahead of the game on stuff.
have been.
And diversion and alternatives are definitely part of
Well,
that.
just so Rick, just think about this. We have more people in our programs than actually in jail.
Right.
Yeah.
In addition, we have people from all over the United States to come and look at our programs, especially our ASU alternative sentencing program. Because
APAD and everything.
Yes, because we do it right, and we do it. It is right, and I will tell you this for a fact that our programs are way better than anybody else's. And maybe I'm a little biased about that, but it's true. And you got outside agencies coming in. Hey, we heard your programs are good. Can you tell us about it? And we're more than happy to share with what we're doing because we're proud of what we're doing.
Right.
And we want people to it's expensive to put people in jail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, you're not as a productive citizen sitting in the jail cell if you can't be out doing your job. So
Yeah.
we want to make it, try to make it better.
Keep you out. We
Keep
want
you
to
out.
keep you
That's
out.
right. That's right. Because, you don't want a family member to suffer because of my stupidity.
Right.
So you just try to, we try to make it right for everybody. So
Right.
we're proud of those programs, and the people that work in those programs, they take pride in what they do. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of tedious work, but they take pride in that. We're not perfect, but boy, they do a good job.
Yeah, I was looking at some stats from 2022 for a presentation I was putting together, and they run the numbers, particularly with alternative sentencing, about how much money could have been spent on incarceration.
Paga report, yes.
And that's like
It's a huge
almost
number.
a $20 million
Yeah.
number
Massive.
with people that could have been
Yes.
if
I
they
didn't
weren't.
realize it was that much.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
big
It
number.
is.
It is.
It's a big number.
It is.
And that's just really cool because with law enforcement, especially when things are going on that puts us back in the limelight for things, it's always nice. And obviously the murder of George Floyd being the most recent example where you have folks demanding things of law enforcement, asking them to do. It was really nice to be able to say, well, we've really been doing a lot of this stuff for a long time. This has been going on. And the diversion and all those things, alternatives is definitely part of that. So you've had a great career here, but I want to talk about a couple of things I know you do outside of work. We like to, because you do have a life outside of the sheriff's office.
I do.
I know you coached football. Do you still coach football?
I am. I'm in East Lake High School now.
Okay.
This has been my second season starting up. I've been coaching for about 20 years, but this is my second season at East Lake. I tried to take a break. I wanted to take a break.
Because you were at Seminole for a long time,
I was
right?
at Seminole.
Yeah.
I was at Northeast. I was at CCC. So I've been all over the place. And I was going to take a break. And one of our retired members called me. He's at East Lake now. 2 retired members called me up. And I went up there and I met with the coach. He's the greatest guy in the world. And the problem is during the week, I'm working a lot. And it comes to my position.
Sure.
So I don't want people to depend on me and I can't make it because it's not fair to the kids.
Absolutely.
So because we have plenty of coaches. We want you to come out. So he said, just come to one of my games, and if you like it, you can coach. I went to the game like, man, how can I say no to
How can you
this?
say no, right?
I mean, I love trying to teach young men because I think I can talk the talk or walk the walk. So I like giving back as whatever possible. And also in a group called Men in the Making.
He's
And
really good at this because that's where I was going.
That is,
Yeah.
that is where same thing. I have 2 girls. I have no young men at all, and I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do.
Well, you have an interesting young man if you have 2 girls.
That's
Yes.
correct. That's true. But it's one of those things where I think because I had so many good people in my life helping me out that you have to give back, and people, especially young kids, they see me as what I call a finished product. I didn't start like this. I started just like they did, and they don't see that.
Yeah.
So it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And I wasn't always the guy that wanted to be in law enforcement. I wasn't always the guy that you see now. I was you.
Right.
But I was lucky because I had people that cared about me.
Right.
I was lucky because I had people that invested in me. I was lucky because I had sports. So I wanted to give back to let these kids understand you can do the same thing. Hard work is free.
Right.
Education system is free. You got to put some effort into it. And that's what we try to stress with these kids. So, it's to me, it's all about these young individuals. And what's really special about it to me is the family support. First of all, going into an environment like that as a law enforcement, as people are standoffish at first because they think, they're standoffish.
Right. You're talking about like Men in the Making specifically, right?
Right.
Which is a mentorship program.
Right. But once they see you're a regular person, then that goes out the window. And we just had our graduation last week, on Saturday. And to see these young men, how they progress from young men to, young adults, see them going to college. But that's what it's all about to me. It's worth it. And you see these kids, they can't wait to share with you some of the things that went on. That's what it's about.
Yeah, I think, and I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for you because you do that and the other things you do, because there are, of course, success stories of folks that maybe had a pretty rough upbringing and they turned it around, and that's great. And that's all well and good. Yep. But then there are people that did all right. They had that person that reached out. Reached out. They were successful, like you. But you of course see the other side of it, and you've seen it for 30 years now. But you still go back and say, hey, this stuff is important. There's still a void here, and what little time you do have, you do that. So that's.
And I have to say this too. I've got some people that work with me. They're part of this too. And the sheriff's office, we're very well represented for Men in the Making. And they're 100% in. They buy into it. And boy, they believe in that too. And they're all 100% in because it's something that you need to do. So that to me, that's just important. As mentor, we have people that are in this, they want to do it.
Right.
And you just see the smiles on their faces being part of this. It's Ricky, to me, that's important.
Yeah,
it is.
And of course, the sheriff's office does support things like that.
Yes.
And some other organizations. Actually, we were at a luncheon a couple months back, and it was for the Pace Center for Girls, which does tremendous things for young girls. And one of the speakers said, our kids can be our assets or our liabilities. And I really like that because that's where we're at. It's good that there are people like you that are doing their best to make sure that they're an asset and not a liability.
Yeah.
And it's not as complicated as you think. Sometimes just paying attention is going to make the difference.
You have to understand their
Somebody's
kids.
paying attention
That's
to them.
right.
Yeah.
And they want attention. They want attention.
Show some interest.
Right. And they're going to get negative or positive. Give them positive because they're going to get their attention. So it's just
one way or another.
One way or another. Right. They're kids. And it's, to me, that is everything to me. And if you save just one kid, then guess what? It was worth it. 100% worth it. 100% worth it.
That's it's amazing to me just how much different someone can be based on whether or not they had support.
That's right.
Like I was blessed to have amazing parents and family that supported me and pushed me, but a kid that doesn't have that, their whole entire future can be different.
That's right.
I taught for 7-8 years, and you can see who has that support. Even at a young age, I taught really young, like 3 to 5 year olds, but there was a massive difference. And so each day I would be like, all right, 6 hours, I'm going to love the hell out of these kids.
That's right.
Because not every single one of them has this. So at least for 6 hours a day.
Right.
Like it was exhausting.
Oh, it is. It is.
But it was like, this is my part. This is what I'm trying to do to make the world just a little bit better.
And that's where sports come in too. You're right, because it's a combination both with sports. It's the teamwork mentality,
right?
The discipline.
Be a part of something.
Be a part of something, but you also have to be reliable. You have to count on you to be on time and to do what you need to do. So that's
with the team.
With the team,
that's and
exactly
a lot of kids too. They got to keep their grades and things up if they want to do sports. Yes. So that's a whole other.
And that's one thing in Men in the Making too. We're part of the school system, so we actually have those kids give us progress reports and report cards, and we can check to see what the grades are. So that is important. And I'm a firm believer that education is the key. Now, not everybody's meant to go to college. I'm not saying that, but education, learning right from wrong, even pushing like some vocational schools, just something out there that you can do, something that's legitimate, that's legal, so you can hold your head high and sleep good at night.
Yeah.
So and not everybody's going to be pro athletes. We tell them that.
We're not going to.
Yeah, you're right. You believe that?
I can't let my son listen to this podcast. Then, he's
yes. You believe that? Not everybody's going to make it.
Yeah.
As an athlete, but you can still make it.
Right.
So it's and we're candid with these. We don't we don't sugarcoat it. We're candid with them. This is how it is. You can talk to me, my professional setting or personal setting. The hard way, the easy way.
Right.
You make that decision.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it, but I'll let you dictate where we're going to go with this.
Right.
So
That's great stuff. So you don't have a lot of spare time, it sounds like. But beyond that, is there anything you like to do? What do you do for fun?
So let me tell you what I do
Coach
for fun.
football.
I am a Buccaneer season ticket holder
There you
also.
go. All right.
Oh,
So
okay.
one of my goals is to see every single NFL stadium in the United States.
Okay.
I went to Germany last year for that game.
Oh, really? Okay.
I did.
Oh, wow.
I've been to London a couple. So if it's football related,
You're in.
I'm in 100% in.
So how many stadiums
Nice.
have you done?
That's a good question, Ricky. And I don't know the answer yet because I'm probably halfway there.
All right.
But that's something that I do every year.
Nice.
I'm going to Green Bay this year.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So and that's
For
a
a game.
December game. Yeah, for
Okay.
a game. So we
So
look
you're not visiting, you're going for games.
I'm going for a game.
Absolutely, okay.
For a game. So we look at the schedule when it comes out.
Bring a jacket.
Several jackets, several long underwear.
something warm to
yes. Well,
You left that weather
I'm sure
behind.
take there. I can visit it, but not live there.
Okay.
Right.
So we look at, there's a group of us, probably 10 of us, and we look at the schedule and we decide on 1 or 2 games where we're going to go to. So
That the Bucks are going to be at?
Yes.
Okay.
And my heads correspond with my high school schedule because I can't go
Sure.
during my high school season. So Green Bay, and that's in December. So we're going to hit Green Bay.
Boy.
Now, we'll see. Now,
I'll be watching you on TV,
I
texting
would,
you,
I would,
laughing.
I would tell you this though. I'm cheating a little bit, but I'll always buy like the suites where I can go outside and get warmer if it gets too bad.
There you
So
go.
so luckily wherever we go, we bring the good weather with us. So
Good.
That's one
I
of the
think
things
we're
we
going
like
to
do.
test that theory this
Yeah,
year.
we are. We 100% are. We are.
Oh man! Well, it's been great chatting with you, Major.
has.
Really appreciate
Yeah.
you coming in. A different kind of conversation because
Yeah.
you've been. I'm not trying to age you, but you've been here a minute.
I've been
And-
here several minutes.
and you've done
That's
a
okay.
whole lot of things in your career, and still, managed to do great things outside of here as well. And Judicial Operations, the few hundred people out there are lucky, I think, to have you out there because you've got a lot of great perspective, and I think your head and your heart are in the right place. So we're fortunate to have you, and we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us.
Yeah.
We do always like to give everyone an opportunity. Is there anything that you want the public to know, anything you want to remind the public about that would help make your job easier or anyone else's?
2 things. The first thing is, please lock your doors when you're not in your cars.
Yeah.
I tell my wife the same thing, lock your doors. The next thing is, in all seriousness, is this job is not what we're made out to be on some social media. It is important, and we're not perfect. We make mistakes, but the mistakes we're making, they're not because we're trying to intentionally hurt anybody. It's just you get caught up in the moment or whatever the thing is. But I'm very fortunate to be in this career for as long as I have. I've worked in one place, Pinellas County, and I'm never going to work for another law enforcement agency again in my life. This is it. So, give us a chance and just see that we're not like people. If you're going to judge me based on your own experience, not somebody else's experience, because, there's a lot of hardworking people in this agency, and it's not just certified, but everywhere. And give us the benefit so we can just prove how hardworking we are. And we're a bunch of good people doing a difficult job. So just make your own decisions, not what other people are telling you.
Well, certainly, I think we've moved the needle for folks if they're listening to you because a great example of that. So thank you again, Major, for coming in. Of course, as always, we would love to hear from you. And if you have any feedback or have a question or something you'd like to see on a future podcast, you can reach us.
Let's 56 at PCSOnet.com. That's LETS56 at PCSOnet.com.
Almost like you've done it before. Great job. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Thanks.